Oh! Oh! Say hello to YouTubers and patrons, because this is the end of episode 30 Sports Roundup, innit? We're going to take everybody through the last year on the car. This is Smokey, but with all animals, you can never get them what you want them to do once the camera's rolling. Camera's not rolling, he'll do other interesting stuff, but now he just wants to leave, whereas normally he's all over you, ain't you, Smokey? But we might have to calm him down. Should we tell everybody what we've been doing now that the shell's finished? This cat'll start meowing in a minute and he'll want to go out. That's just the way that it works. What I'm going to do on this clip, last night or the night before, I can't remember, I think it was 2 nights ago, we did a sort of live, what they call YouTube premiere, which is, it counts down, it tells you that the film's going to come out, it's not yet live and it counts down. A lot of you would have seen that, and you get a little chat box coming. I've never tried it before, it's quite interesting. Gives me a chance to type away, so I have to be by the computer when it counts down. Told you to do that. So we're going to do that, we're going to do the live video for, oh dear, that's definitely a cut. Okay, you should be able to see in the middle of your screens that the piston's on its way out, and you can see a second part of the piston now coming out as it heads out towards this end. You can see it just starting to peek out. So we've just been using just a disposable screwdriver, there we are, nothing fancy, just a light hammer and tapping down slowly with some penetrating fluid in front and behind it. That's the first piece coming out, then we can start on what's going to be a lot harder, and that'll be the piston buried at the back there. Let's see if we can get this just completely withdrawn now. Right, sorry, I've dug a tripod out for you. Remove these white items because it confuses the camera. Just back on the deck. Watch this now. So we don't want to damage our socket. It's not a tool to be used for knocking things, although I'm happy and I've got artistic license available. That's actually freed up. Look, we've gone. We've actually released. So, yep, it's amazing how much force is created by the process of hydraulics and pneumatics. This, wow, it's really hard to keep that in, but we're going to work it now using that technique to get this all the way out, because we're still stuck in there. Okay, so because we're still stuck in there, I want to get this all the way out to present this master cylinder to the brake company pre-stripped. So now you could let the spring do the work, and we might go. Because anything's better if we can avoid the compressed air, it's better. Way! It worked! Hold on while the compressor stops. turn that compressor off for you. Well, that technique, you just saw it happening. I've never tried it before, but look, we rocked it out just by continually, and that is that. There you go. So we've saved it. I didn't really know how that was going to unfold, but that, considering that they didn't want to do this repair for me because of the way it was seized, maybe they just couldn't be bothered to do that simple process. Now, you could use hydraulics. They'll have a system, I would have thought. That obviously the company I used didn't have that system or didn't want to know about it, but perhaps you could pump in hydraulic oil, and I would have thought that's a lot more controllable, plus would give you a lot more force, a lot safer than compressed air would, because you could just operate the pump handle and pump in the fluid into here and just pump them out of the barrel. I would have thought that's what they'd do. I mean, I've never asked. I'm going to ring some brake companies up and just say, how do you do unstuck masters? In fact, I've not even googled it. I just was in the garage and waiting for the shell to be picked up, and I thought, these need sending away, these have got to be done. So that is fully stripped, and I cannot see any reason why you can't reline that now with a stainless steel sleeve, refurb this and re-galvanise it, and we should have a good master cylinder. In fact, we can get the others I've got in stock now that are also seized and rusty and horrible, dip them, strip them, and get myself some ones in spares as well, because I've got 2 more of these. So that's good news. So we're done, it worked, bit unorthodox. Any damage? No damage to this piece. Spring's all right, just that piston took a bit of a beating on its way out, but considering we've got nothing to lose, then really I think we've done all right there. I think that'll reuse. We'll dip that in some deruster and just we'll send it to them anyway, and then they've got all the bits. Okay, we'll move on to another job now. That was just something which I thought I'd film. Could have turned out interesting, and it did. Great stuff. So fully stripped down. As you can see, painting with the roller door open and the mask on. Talked about the mask in our little chat video earlier on. Our chat video that came out in October when we did the live chat. I'm standing just a little bit back. One full rattle can did the dash and those little trim pieces, so we've got another rattle can for the steering wheel, and anything else that needs 2 packing. I don't think there's much else, but just in case, we've got 2 cans. I'm standing back because the mask, because the mask is off, and I don't want to get too close to those 2-pack fumes because the activator's not the nicest of chemicals, so we stay well away while the mask is off. Anyway, I'll get in for you to film very shortly when everything's settled, and we'll go and have a look. We'll put it back up against that side there because that's where it's going to be getting built. It's just, as I said, it's just spun round, so the light, that lighting strip was giving me decent light. I also used the torch. Dare I venture in, just having a sniff. It's not too bad. I used this. I just went over as I was painting it to make sure there was no runs or anything like that. Gone very carefully with it, about 3 passes with the can, 15 minutes between each coat, so an hour we've been on this, maybe just under. Okay,
Could be, actually, no, I think 10 minutes between coats, half an hour. Alright, so I'm not going to go any closer, even though the windows are open. Very wary, staying in fresh air, everybody. Okay, but it's going to look nice, this. And of course, as I said, when Monday or Tuesday arrives, we'll have loads more room, and we can use this clip here, this jig here to build the clip up. That's going to be exciting. Just waiting for the galvanised bolts. They should be landing any minute now. So give me half an hour, we'll go in, have a closer look at this dash panel. Our cigarette tray. So in and round. Not spotting any blemishes. LED torch just above the camera, giving the camera its own little mini light. Good finish with the rattle can. The 2-pack rattle cans, great fan feature on them. The nozzle gives a good spread. So I recommend those 2-pack cans. But don't forget, it's dangerous stuff, so you've got to be ventilated with those. I've not actually read the warning label on it. I didn't actually see a cyanide warning label on that can. I'll go and have a look at the can in a second. Let's just check that ashtray front. The ashtray front is here. That's good, no runs in that. I was careful to go around the edges of the ashtray, because obviously you tend to miss that. If you've got to bring the can at the back, don't forget to do that. So there we have it. 1 dash rattle can down. The reason I've made a second pass is I'm not 100% sure if I just had my record button on, so if you get this twice, I'm sorry. I'll try and edit it out, but I'll probably miss that bit. Okay, great stuff. Let's move on to something else. We really need to leave this, and I think really now it's best not to do any more work in the workshop today, because we don't want to raise any dust up. It's best just to get out of here and let that harden. Not sure how long it takes to harden, but already looks like it's beginning to harden now. Anyway, the fumes have died down. I think I'm going to just call it an early one today and do some admin work instead and just leave this. It's tempting to just start cleaning up and stuff, but you're going to create dust, so let's leave it for today. We'll resume on Monday with the chat. Now that's ahead of your time. You're watching episode 31. Did I introduce this as episode 30 before? Episode 31 you're watching, so welcome to episode 31. And we're straight in with a dash. Okay, good way to start the show. Move on to something else on Monday. It's weekend now. See you in a bit. And we're not hanging about. Dash nicely cured, paint set nicely, so there's bits to start fitting back to this dash and building up, so we'll start with that shortly. But before we do, in episode 31 we've got to roll the shell out. We've got news that transport is on the way, so I'm just preparing now. A little bit of air in the tyres, make sure everything's locked down, nothing loose. We're ready to go. We can just push this shell out and onto Dave's truck. So here we are, and the weather luckily is good, so no rain today on this Tuesday. Well, we're ready to go, so any minute now we'll catch Dave, push across the gravel. Hopefully I can do it. There's only me and Dave today to push this out, get it onto the road, then line it up back of the truck and off to the paint shop. So we're on schedule, everything's looking good. We'll cut to the truck any second now. See you in a sec. Turn, I think one more should do it. That's the one.
stories of the pastoral and personal.
I proposed on our second date. I have to say, she let me down very gently, like an egg into a pan of boiling water.
We have arrived. Paint shop, unloading. Come on, Dave, we can do it. Paint shop unloading time. There he is. Okay, ties up this time. We're getting round there alright. Better get used to pushing it, boys. Woo! Okay, lights on. So, we've had a clean up. We've got all the parts in, ready to start some assembly work here in the workshop. So step back, have a look at our clean setup. Walls all painted down, de-dusted, floor repainted. Always good when a second coat goes on anyway, gets it even smoother. This is a resin coat floor paint. It's a two-part paint, epoxy paint. You mix together. This is mid-grey, and I got the paint from resincoat.co.uk. Quite good price. Check on there, they got 50% offer on at the moment. Resin coats. Mix it. You got half an hour to get it down before it starts to get a bit too hard to paint, but you can do it. It rolls on very nicely. So we cleaned up. We brought the clip in and put it on its stand there. We got the engine stand ready because the engine's in the post and on the way. We got the dash, as you just seen us painting, and now it lives there on that back wall. Our electronics bench is now open for business. Begin on the electronics bench with me, trying to repair some of the cameras. We're on Lee's camera today. Some of my old cameras are here, and what happens with these cameras, they take the hits from iron filings, mainly is the enemy, and the lenses get angle grinder marks on them. So what I was doing here was taking a lens off a breaker that has a sound fault but a good lens, but I came across a problem because the ribbon cable pulled out of the edge connector. It gets a bit tricky to do. I got it all back together, but then it has a little power pack, or rather a capacitor. Bring it into your screen. This is what happened. That capacitor there is to hold the memory between battery swaps. Surprising amount of charge in that. Anyway, when I was plugging that back into the board, pins didn't line up and it sparked. I blew the whole lot. So really we've gone backwards with the camera's situation there, but we'll put all these in boxes, and lenses and parts are still good on these two. Now these two took the brunt of the restoration, some of Ruby's restoration, but a lot of Bramble's paint marks and stuff, but essentially there's enough there probably still to build one up, but I'm going to go back to that another time. It was I ran out of time on that, so put all those away, mark up which board was what. One had a sound fault, so mark up which board had which on it and which bits are good, and then just lay them out, and they can go towards any damaged cameras that I get. The one I'm on now is going to last because we're not doing angle grinding. It's angle grinding that really wipes your camera out, and welding that burns the lenses. So we'll probably get a full run out of this one. These cameras, Panasonics, they are anyone asking, these are Panasonic DC ranges. This was a DC3 HX, Panasonic HX. Good, but with any camera you would have got that problem happening. It doesn't matter what you picked. The little speakers and the microphones on the cameras have got magnets in. The iron filings find their way onto them magnets and corrode them up, lock them up. They also get into the servo parts of the camera and can stick the servo so your focusing doesn't work. Stuff like that happens. And these cameras, I was getting them second hand around £40, £50 second hand. Great pieces of kit. For me anyway, I like to use them. If I'd have gone for a very, very expensive camera, you may have seen a slight difference in quality on the filming. But for the extra money and it getting damaged, I didn't think it was worth it. So really we treated these as almost disposable items, although I don't like that word. I've tried to get max out of them as I could. You know, I don't like wasting anything. So I really took these to the limits. And they produced all the films that you've seen over the last couple of years. So, okay, enough of that and onto this. So lay out your powder coated parts, start laying out your nuts and bolts and everything that you need. And then what we'll do, I've got a little computer desk here going in. I'm just going to have an old second-hand PC that I got. I'm going to have that running there on the Wi-Fi so that I can Google bits and bobs without having to keep going in the house. Because there's going to be a bit of Googling going on here. I'll be downloading some information that I need. If there's any questions, and then I'm going to have a little printer and just print stuff off. So I'm going to print off little job sheets, for example. Now that we're getting onto this clip, I'm going to just print off the exploded diagram. I have got it in the books and I could put the manual next to me there, I suppose, but I like having it just on a bit of A4, not damaging my Ford book, and just pin it up so we can know what we're doing. Good thing about the clip, I've got another clip completely built off the Portugal shell. Again, Portugal to the rescue. And if we want, we can wheel that in. It's a bit grubby, but it won't damage the floor. We'll wheel it in if we have to. And it's completely built. So inevitably, I always forget which bolt goes where. I know I've done it so many times, but which way the head goes. And it's just handy just to save a lot of time by just looking at one that's already built and just copying all your bits across. So that'll do the clip. Engine, as soon as it arrives, we'll pop it on the stand. I do believe the engine company, Gem, is sending it with the head on, and I'll run through the spec of the engine when it arrives. We'll pop it onto this stand. In these boxes are all the things we've been accumulating at Auto Jumbles over the last couple of years with this project in mind. It's a lot of stuff, and of course we've done a powder coating mention, of course, early on the videos. Still more powder coating stuff to unwrap there. Axle's already been painted, you saw that. A couple of calipers there from Big Red. They didn't even want my old calipers in exchange for these lovely units. Look at these. They just charged me 119 quid and sent these out. They're beautiful. Look at these. Oh, come on. Wow. These lovely calipers. Yeah, haha. Okay. Brake pads to go with them, fitting kits to go with them. They didn't come from Big Red. We can get them from Big Red. Wayne kindly supplied these. This is Wayne. He's got a copper, I think it's copper bronze Wayne, isn't it? Your Mk3 GXL that Wayne's got. Well, he's in the club. Look what he sent us. So kindly thank him for that, and also some other bits, some pipe and clips and tubes. Really good. Saved the day for me there. Wayneck. Bottom and top ball joints, all the bits we're going to need. There's our brake drums for the rear. They're painted in high temp paint, just matted on, because I've had them powder coated in the past, and they just, if something goes wrong with your brakes, I think I went with having my handbrake stuck on, I was driving the car hard, and I cooked the brakes at the back and it melted the powder coat. So don't powder coat your drums at the back, it doesn't work. Just use high temp paint, it's easier. Okay, gearbox we know all about, it's there. Just want to clean up on some of the ancillary items, making to look like new old stock. I'll take the bolts out and replace each one with new bolt heads. These have been overpainted. But I'm happy with what they did with the gearbox. They don't start detailing it like me and you would. They just they steam clean the case down and then they paint it in silver. So I'll just detail that engine, that gearbox a little bit more than that. But we thank Grant at Automatic Transmissions for his work on that. Some hoses. Quinton Hazel do a lot of your hoses. That's the rear flexi hose for the axle. These are some auto jumble ones I've got. We'll inspect them and make sure they're okay. If they're looking like they're perished, they won't be going on. Some brand new brake discs there, 20 quid the pair, or 22.50 for the motor factors, and they were cheap. So you can get a lot of the running gear stuff, reasonable prices. Some of this from the club, Mk3 Owners Club. Advantage of joining the club, you get offers on stuff like we only paid £5 each for these Motorcraft air filters, and we only paid, I think it was a tenner a set for your back brake shoes, because club prices, always good to, it's 20 quid to join. You've got a Mk3 and you're not in, join for 20 quid, you can't go wrong. You get discount tickets for the NEC show, you get access to the forum, for unlimited access to the forum, which you can ask all your tech questions. I'll be on there to answer them if you post me a question. Mk3 Owners Club, Google it. Okay, we've got a starter motor, we've got an alternator there on the shelf, we've got the Spax adjustables. These are front and back adjustables, we'll look at those. And I'm just starting to load these components onto this shelf here, just to keep things organised. So we've moved the shelving stack across to this side. We need to get the vise in here on the RSJ. We're going to put a piece of board down so it doesn't scratch the paint, because the vise helps me to lock in my brake flaring kit, because I'll be making up some brake pipes soon. So a nice area to work in. My electronics bench gets messy quick. It always did, it always will. Obviously that camera's not connected to the car directly. So we'll get that all back away and get that bench tidy, get the computer set up so it's we can just quickly access any tech stuff online. And we might even be able to do a live stream from here. That's what I'm hoping to do as well with the computer and a webcam. We'll do a live Q&A as well, because that was popular with the Premiere Q&A that we did. So a quick overview before we move on. Dashboard bits start to come together, of course. All our powder coating pays off and we start building up. So mostly dusted down, a little bit more dusting down to do, a bit of the window ledges to clean up, then we're done. And some stickers to take off the glass. Lee's gonna be angry for me for not taking them stickers off. I'm gonna come take them off. They won't come off now, they've been on that long. I'll scrape them off. Okay, I'm gonna set up on a tripod and we'll start building some bits up soon. Now I am short of some nuts and bolts. They're still away at galvanising. These are backup ones which we had spare. But our main consignment of galv stuff is running late. Even though I took it into them ages ago, I knew that they had long lead times, and that's why them bolts went off first. However, despite all of that, the bolts are still not ready to collect from galving. Everything else has fallen into place, so we've missed the target a little bit on the bolts, but I think there's enough infill time to just sneak through and do other jobs while them nuts and bolts arrive. Maybe a bit more organising, and perhaps we could switch to some electrical work and start planning out the wiring. There's enough room on the floor to peg out the wires and make life easy. I'm going to work on the floor building the loom with some boards. There's an advantage that I've got a very nice heated floor system. It basically consists of 100 metres of John Guest tubing that was put into the floor when it was laid, the concrete, and some Kingspan. The dearest part was the Kingspan. The tube wasn't expensive. It was about 48 quid for 100 metres of John Guest, and an old boiler running it. It works very well, and that means that for me I can work on a warm floor, which does make a big difference. If you're doing a garage build, or maybe you've seen this garage here, this is one of those prefab concrete setups, but I've lined it with chipboard and Kingspan and aluminium cladding, and you can build within a certain meterage without planning. I think it's 30 metres, we're at 28, and if you're doing that, suggestion for you, if you're doing a car, underfloor heating makes a massive difference. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest differences. Good lighting as well makes a big difference, and just set it out nice and good floor paint. But more than anything, very good underfloor heating for working in. The heat comes from your feet, rises up, you just feel like you're in a warm place. You're in your house. It's as good as being indoors. Makes a big difference. Everything's nice and warm. Parts aren't cold, spanners aren't cold. You can set your timer for it to come on before the end of the working day. So when you get in from work and you do your errands, and then you want to do a couple of hours outside, you're up. And it's reasonably economical. The boiler comes on for a couple of hours, and then that's it. The floor just holds the heat all day. And especially if you play a Kingspan in, that's one of the biggest expenses, but it's well worth it. All these walls here are Kingspan up into the ceiling, and I've got a decent up and over door which doesn't get in the way. Look, we were even able to roll the shell over on the spit without it touching this framework. So it's just perfect, really. It's a Horman door which is insulated, and pretty good door seal at the bottom. We're not getting any drafts in, and we did draft proof the whole place when we built it. There's a video of the garage getting built on my channel. If you scroll back, you'll see Cortina garage build. Enough of that for now. I'm going to work out exactly what I'm going to do next. I'll catch you in a minute. I've took you out on the road to get out of the workshop for cam coat collection of the exhaust manifold and plate, and a bit of train spotting thrown into boot. So we're just rolling into cam coat now. They've plated, they've coated, ceramic coated the exhaust manifold, and we're coming in to pick it up, rolling into their premises park up the front now. It's right next to the West Coast main line, so we'll get some train spotting in at the same time for a little break away from the workshop there, just for a sec. Nice one.
Alright,
thank
buddy.
you.
Nice.
Cheers, buddy. Right, we're picking up from Camco on the sales counter there. Just look what we've got. All this stuff that they do is to do with ceramic coating, and you get some great finishes. Look at the finishes over here. So there's a big colour range of stuff for your exhausts. Not sure if that's ceramic. If it is, it's good. It probably is, because they do a chrome finish. Someone's even had a camshaft done there. A Ford exhaust manifold. Do we know what it's from? Anyone ID that manifold? I don't. Should do. So all those bits. And I'll pick your brochure up. We'll go through the process there. Another manifold on the bench. A ring for service, but we're all done. We're paid and done. So I've had my deflector plate. That bolt wasn't part of it. That was done in a chrome finish. It was a little bit pitted, but it's all I could get my hands on this, and it'll do it okay. Okay, so we're done, and we're off out of Camco. Okay, pop that into the Mondeo. So there we have the company just there. And now we do Camco. Let's go train spotting. There's the West Coast main line. I think it is anyway. Let's go and check it out. It's a slow bit of track wherever it is. Nothing coming. Please be a train. Let's 1, 2, 3, 4. No, definitely West Coast. So there should be plenty of activity. Can't hear the lines pinging. Those overhead rails, so overhead live wires that ping, the track vibration, any noise, anything coming through. Nothing yet. Afraid this is uneventful for you on our Camco day out. We'll have to leave it. I'll go and see if I can find you anything else. We may have to abandon this trip for the railway. Leaving Camco with no trains, and I thought on the West Coast you'd have got loads of traffic. never mind. Warrington's not the easiest place to get out of for where I want to go now, so bear with me because I'm going to hit some traffic. We'll find another train crossing for you coming up soon, I hope. You train spotters out there. Okay, we're back in the workshop now, and more parts get put on more shelves, and I'm now about to begin the electronics build. And while you may see a little chaos on the floor, don't worry about it, because what I'm doing is going through all my components that just really got placed in this briefcase, the last project build on Ruby. So what I need to do is get up the game with the organisation. As you can see, that's going quite well in terms of our organised setup. So what I'm going to do is put all these components, stuff like your resistors, transistors, diodes and all those kind of parts, modules and things, all into little trays. We're going to get Sean in on that because he likes to do the jobs we hate. Sean is like a pig in pig muck when he's doing this. Sean will lay down there the bear, and he'll just put them all into these trays. I bought some more storage containers from CPC Farnell, £8 a tray, them pretty good ones. So we'll put all the electrical components away. We bought more stuff, bought more bits, start to set up the electronics bench then. So if I pan behind you, a radio there getting ready for the MP3 conversion, that's one of the initial jobs. Scope and signal generator there for the cruise control, and some more little trays that I've got. Up some of my tools, got a new set of wire strippers because my others had snapped. I'm going to be needing them. Solders in stock. The dashboard is now on wheels, so I bought some casters from Machine Mart, which you just bolt through the legs, look. So just drill a hole. I didn't want to flip the bench upside down, so I just drilled through the top, straight through the bottom, then the bolt goes on the inside, 17mm. Had to use a very thin spanner, one of the ones you get with the air tools, because the gap between the bottom of the leg, you couldn't get a regular 17 in. So I just had this, luckily I had this very thin spanner type, which was for air tools, and that enabled me to grip the bolt and tighten up. So the bench then, now fully transportable, and we can move around wherever we want. So I'll just stand back now that I've moved it. You can see the idea. Look how we can transport the bench around the workshop, because we're going to need to spin it and get to the back all the time. A lot of the work will be coming in from the back, so foot down on there, spin it round, and you're off. Just that way. Okay, so that's a good little improvement. And then what else have we got? So we've got that as an improvement. Bought myself a little spinny chair, so I can just, yeah, wow, hey, yeah, hey. Now that's good. The PC's set up. We can switch on, and now we can have internet rock radio. Got myself some speakers fitted, little PC down there I got that was broken, and repaired it. Again, a saving was made. It's amazing what you can find out there on the tip. Take something to the tip and bring something back. So we're connected up, and we're online. So the idea with the computer was that we're going to be downloading initially tech data sheets for the chips to make different bits and bobs that we're doing. So quite often I want to get sort of parts, let's say for example these Darlington arrays here. I'll talk about what they are. This is going to be double Dutch to non-electronics folk, but I'll talk you through it. So these chips, you get the spec sheets online, we can either print out or just keep going across to the computer screen. So we're getting ready then for an electronics build, and the first thing we're going to do today on the electronics build is the multifunction warning lamp. So I'll first talk you through what that is. At the moment it's here, and curiously it's labelled as wiper. It's a Cortina part. You can see that keyway there fits into the keyway of the cutout in the dash. This was a spare hole in the dash that Ford fitted for this lamp, but it's Canadian for some reason. If anyone knows the reason why out there in YouTube land, patrons, why would you have to have a lamp that said wiper on it? What function would it be? I mean, yeah, it lights up, but why? And it's upside down. So goes in and it's upside down on the install. If you did put it the right way around, the keyway's in the way. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Thinners on there to take that paint off, and it becomes a clear lens then that suits the dashboard. So this clear lens, it's the multifunction warning lamp. So I'm going to fit 4 different colours of LED inside it in a cluster, and they'll poke through that hole and then they go into this area. So what happens is each colour is for a particular warning, and the idea is that all your warning lamps are located in just one area rather than different lights around the dash. Keeps it neat. And the warning lamp, what it does is, if the oil pressure's dropped, it flashes red. If the frost temperature goes, it goes green. Over temp on your water, etc., lights up. But you need to do it sequentially, and that's why we've got to do an electronics build. When I say sequentially, if your oil light was on and it was frosty, or you were low on fuel, you don't want all 3 lamps on at the same time, because it will blend the colours together, and you'd be confused as to what was actually going on. So the circuit I'm going to build today takes each signal and cycles it in turn. So oil would take priority, and then it would step through looking at all the other sensors. In our case, it's going to be 5 sensor inputs to it. I'll talk you through why there's 5 and only 4 colours, but 2 colours do mix together on one of the sensors. Sounding confusing, it will make itself a bit clearer later on, but it sequences through. So our oil pressure would be on, so that would flash. Then it would then look at the others, and if none of them are on, it comes back round to the oil and flashes it again. If the fuel was low, it would go oil, come round, look at the fuel one, then flash orange for the fuel, then go back round to oil again. So you get a sequence of alarms flashing through with oil taking the priority. It's a 10-step procedure. So the signal counts to 10. I'll tell you why that is, because the chips that you buy to do the cycling are in multiples of 10, to do with mathematics really. They're called decade counters, and the decade counters are just a little tiny chip, which we're going to show you. I don't know where they are, they're on the bench somewhere. It's not those, but the decade counter is a little chip. It's a 4017, and you give it a clock signal like a heartbeat, and that creates the count, and then it counts through, looks at the sensor wires. If they're live, it flashes the bulb. Now that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it will do when we start getting going on here. So people ask for tech vids, you're going to get tech vids, and we're going to do this in a modular system, right? So it's every circuit is a module. On Ruby, a lot of the stuff was combined into one box. This build, I'm going to do it differently. I've got these project boxes. Go over here and have a look at them. Again from CPC. We've got these little module boxes which we can put the circuit boards in. So there'll be a series of these module boxes. Our first one will be the warning lamp system. Okay, so the first of our modules is up. Well, not quite up and running, but we're nearly up and running. Module to the left there. I'm going to run you through this dead quick. It's not too bad. It looks worse than it is. They always do. This little module here is what's called a 555. It's just a flasher. That's all it is. There's a little chip on there which creates a flashing signal. I can alter the speed of the flash, the duration and the speed with these two little, what you call pots, trimmers, but they're just little tiny screws that you turn, and that'll speed or slow that up. Now that's rate is the rate which the lamps are going to cycle through, so I can set that faster or slower if I want. That's all that does. It's got a power, a ground, and then there's a brown wire which gives the output. Now the output is just 12 volts off and on, so if you connected a bulb to that, you couldn't actually drive a bulb, but if you connect an LED to it, it'll flash same speed that that red one there is. So out of that board, all that board is just going flash, flash, flash. That's all it is. And it flashes the 12 volts onto this brown wire. The brown wire goes into a chip here which counts how many times that flashes. This chip can only count to 10, then it goes back round to the beginning. This chip's got 10 outputs on it, okay, on the little legs, and the other pins are 16 pins altogether, but 10 of them are used for the counting operation. And what they do is, each time that flashes or pulses, this chip will go in sequence on the 10 legs. They're never on all at the same time. You can only ever have one on at once. So on them legs of the chip, it'll go, don't quite know the order here, but it'll be 12 volts on that one, then it'll go 12 on that one, then it might go across that side. Depends how they've configured the chip. But 10 12 volt pulses will go on at the same speed that that is, then it goes back to the beginning. So I've got a little 12 volt tester here. This is called a logic probe, coming into screen for you, and that's just very similar to an automotive 12 volt tester. Little probe at the end here, touch that onto anything that's live and the LED will light up. There's a couple of other features on it as well, but we don't need to worry about those. So if I touch one of the legs, we need to find, I'm now looking on my computer, which is out of your screen because it's got the diagram on. I should have printed this diagram off, but I'm looking on screen. One of the outputs is on, well, pin 1 is actually the first one in the sequence. Pin 1's at the top of the chip. On a chip you have a little locating tab which tells you which is the top of the chip, like an indent, and then you count down your pins. So from the top left is 1, it goes down to 8, and then they go from the bottom back up. So 8, across the opposite side is 9, and up to 16. But pin 1 is the first output of it. So we'll see that as it counts round, this will momentarily go live. Now I don't know if your camera's going to be able to pick the probe up. I'm going to move the board slightly into your screen so you can see the probe lamp go. Just on screen there now, so we'll touch that on, and then you get a red flash, and then it counts to 9, then it'll get to 10 and go back round. So that's how it's working. Okay, so let's put that probe on again and just check that again, and you'll see I've took the camera slightly back a little bit. Pin 1 is the first one that goes. Hold on, we are disconnected, hang on. What I could do with now is some nice spare jumper leads to connect my loom. I'm just on some croc leads off screen, connecting the power up. Right, LED flashes. Pin 1 of the chip will go 12 volts every 10 cycles. You see the green, bringing you in there now. You'll get a red, there's the red as it goes round. Now it's counting up, so let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There you go, see it. 10th one's on that. So I'm just counting the flashes. You can just see the flashes on screen. You can count them yourself. let's see, it goes red. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can see every 10 that lights up. So all the rest of the remaining 9 pins are following it in sequence. If I connected some lights to those other pins, you'd get a sequence, like a Knight Rider type thing. It'd go step along like that. So that's how you get the sequence. Okay, so the next step is to connect our warning lamps to this. And you'll think, right, well, I've got 5 warning lamps. Let's remind ourselves of those colours. Red for oil, yellow for low fuel, orange for high engine temp, blue for Bluetooth, green for frost. Okay, now you've got 10 outputs, but only, how many lights was that? 5 or 6? There'll be some spare ones, but the spare outputs on this chip link back to the oil, so that in the sequence, oil is picked up first on pin 1, because it's the most important lamp you want to go in the sequence. But once you've gone through the remaining pins for the LEDs, you've got some spare ones. Well, you link them back to the oil lamp, so that the oil lamp actually gets an extra 4 flashes. So let's say your oil pressure was on and it was frosty, the oil pressure was low and it was frosty, you would get 1 flash of oil. Let's say the frost is on the next pin, pin 2, so it'd go oil, frost for 2, count, there'd be nothing, then the remaining ones would be oil, oil, then back to oil again. So really you're using the spare ones to make the oil more included in the cycle. In other words, more than once. I'm just trying to think how many I've got. Bluetooth's 1, oil's 2, frost is 3, low fuel, yeah, it's 5. So it's 5 bulbs, colours of bulbs we're using, but yet we've got 10 outputs on the chip. So when it's counted through the first 5 colours, I'm going to use the remaining ones, the remaining 5, to fire the oil light back up, just so it's a quicker warning. Otherwise you'd have to wait 5 dead pulses till it gets back round to the oil, if that makes sense. I hope it does. I know this is going to get technical, but so far it's reasonably simple. On the left is a clock or a timer or a flasher. On the right is a 10-stage counter which counts those flashes and goes back round the beginning. As it's counting those flashes, it indicates them as 12-volt signals on one of 10 pins going round in a circuit like that. So flash that, round the way round we go. It's called a decade counter. The next job is to connect the LEDs up to it. I'll take you through that now. We'll quickly get on with this because I don't want to get too heavy into the electronics. Hopefully we've got a good view on the bench. The jobbie's connected to the overhead lamp, so it's quite good for lighting, and I'm hoping you can hear me okay as we go through this stage of building the multifunction warning lamp then for Project Bramble. Okay, the next piece of the jigsaw is going in. This is what you call a transistor array. It's a load of transistors all built into one chip. Now, you may as well be, if you're not familiar with electronics, you might think, well, there's no point telling me about transistors, whether they're in an array or not. But I will tell you about transistors. They're little tiny electronic switches. They're the basis of all early computers. In fact, all computers have some form of a transistor in them. You might have heard of, well, you will have heard of relays. They're similar to relays, transistors, in that they switch a signal, a current, or whatever you want them to switch electronically. And for me, I'm getting them to switch the LEDs. If I connected the LEDs straight to the chip, they'd be on all the time. Okay, so that little clock that you just saw would be flashing away, and that little 10-stage counter would be turning the LEDs on whether the oil pressure was on or not. So we don't want that. So what we do is, these little transistors are like little gates, and if the gates aren't open, the lights won't come on. So what happens is this: you connect your LEDs to this transistor, and then you you apply the power, sorry, you put your warning signal, let's say, for example, the Bluetooth module. When the Bluetooth's on, that's when I'm making a call. We're going to have a little blue light on this cluster. Well, let's take, actually I'll take the frost sensor. It's a bit better example because the Bluetooth's a sort of a luxury. Hold on while I just unsolder this. I'm working quite a distance from you and I can't see a thing. That's my desoldering tool. If you mess up your solder, which I'm doing, you can sort of suction it off. Yeah, I was talking about the transistors and how we're going to get these lights to sequence. Well, let's say that frost alarm is active. It's -1 outside, so the frost sensor, which will fit, gives a 12-volt output on a cable that ends up coming into this module, so that it can eventually be displayed as a green flashing lamp on our cluster. But you only want it to flash when it's going round in that sequence. So what happens is that sequence chip, we're going to call it the decade counter, will in turn open these little transistors up so that at one given point, one of the transistors that the frost 12-volt wire goes through will open only in that sequence. So if I connect the 12-volt signal, it goes into the transistor here. Transistor's now shut because it's not being told by this chip to open. So as soon as this chip gets round in its count cycle, it'll correspond, because there's 10 transistors in here and there's 10 outputs there, link them together, and this will then allow the gate to close. So that 12-volt signal from the frost sensor can now get through the gate and find its way through to the LED. So this basically interrupts the feed to your LED. And it's controlled by the decade counter. And that's what gives you your sequence. It's hard to explain sometimes. I mean, it is always difficult for me to actually tell you clearly and concisely. It's better if we draw it on a diagram, which we'll do later on. I'm just getting this chip in now. It's difficult for me. My eyes are never as good as they were. I've got this magnifier, which now I'm just going to go over. It's a heck of a lot easier with a magnifier. But I can only use one hand. There's two just grouped up. Too much solder on. You don't really want to put too much solder on. I'm a little bit rusty. It's a while since I've done my electronics. So I'm just getting back into it really. People out there that do this for a living may be cursing me. Luckily this chip can take a bit of abuse. It's only transistors. Sometimes if you over solder a chip, you can blow the chip with the heat. But we should be okay here. Apologies if it's a bit blobby, it'll get better. I have to close one eye with the magnifier. And can you see my hand? Not quite stable. All signs of age. Right, that chip's in. We're now going to connect a test LED to it. And then we're going to connect the chip to the outputs of the decade counter so we get our sequence. So 10 little gates inside here will be closing in sequence like this. 10 little sets of miniature contacts, if you will, going round the same way that the lights go round. And those little gates are all independent of each other. A wire will come in from your sensor, like we said, the frost. It'll go into that gate, one side of the contact. Can't get anywhere, so the light doesn't come on, but every 10 pulses from that decade counter will close that particular associated transistor for the time that we set on that pulse, then it'll open again. Count round 9, 10, it'll close. Go round 9, 10, it'll close. So you'll get this effect. But as that transistor is doing it, the one next to it's also doing it, so they're chasing, so it's going to go, that one closes, goes open, that one closes, goes open, that one closes, goes, so all these little tiny miniature transistor switches in here are going round, close, open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close, all the way around like that in time with this. So any wires that you put into these will get interrupted, will always be open until a brief moment when they close and the next pair. So all your signals from all your sensors go into here and then are displayed in a sequence. I'll show you how it works when we get it actually wired up. Sorry, it sounds a little bit, it's hard to explain. Anyway, camera off now. I'm going to neaten this up, connect some LEDs to it, and we should have a sequence. We'll connect our sensors to the 12 volt feed. We'll start with just a red diode. We'll do 2 or 3 so it looks interesting on camera. Okay, here we go. Okay, on the bench, just taking you back there, looking overhead, see what we've been doing, just showing you the computer, how it's handy it is for that. It's got a little Wi-Fi dongle in the front of it, picking up. I did try a network adapter thingy to get, I have got one of these mains one. It did sort of work, but I couldn't get the network set up. I have got Cat5 that I could pull through here if I had to, but that dongle seems to be giving a good signal. So that's why that computer's been handy. Once I've done this and I've proved that I'm up and running and got myself into the groove of doing electronics, so it's time for a tidy up in the workshop and put all these components into the boxes. This was just to get you going, so you can see how this magnifier helps as well. I've got the chip in place. I'm gonna now start doing the patch leads, and I will make up the cluster. We may as well just try and find some LEDs now, because I'm not laid out yet, but I will be. I've got to find all the LEDs and all this stuff down here. I've got to go through all my parts. They're out there. But we have this little LED tester which we use, and we just put the legs of the LED in there the right way round, of course. Anode and cathode, it's positive and negative. Our LEDs only work one way round. Okay, so we're going to find blue, green, we'll see what colours we've got, then we'll wire some leads onto them. In fact, I might just do the actual main cable run. We may as well do the main cable run, there's no point not doing it. So I'll get some alarm cable, which is very handy for this kind of work, because you get 8 core alarm cable will do. 5 core would do it, no 6 core would do. And then we'll put all the LEDs on the cluster and just see what it's looking like. And then you should get the colour sequence through. Here we go. Okay, just wiring up the LEDs. I've got green, blue and red there, and I've just found myself an amber or an orange LED. As I'm going along as well, I'm labelling up my little trays, shouting a little bit because the radio's on. But this is the low fuel warning, so I'll get that in now. Doing good. It was 4 lights, not 5. I made a mistake. Pair of 8 for 4. Here we go. Okay, everything is up and running. This unit is now counting through, and I've got currently the Bluetooth wire connected. I'll bring it into your screen now. You'll just see the cable coming in. Nothing's connected now, so all the cables are wired, all the LEDs are wired, and here are the inputs which will go to each sensor. So that will connect to my Bluetooth mute relay. When I connect 12 to this now, you'll see that every 10 clicks you'll get a flash. Like that. So frost alarm is the green wire. Connect the frost alarm to 12 volts to simulate, there you go, to simulate that sensor being active. Here's our low oil. Pinching it with my fingers for the low oil. You can just see it's just not angled towards the lens, but it is on. Every 10. And then low fuel coming up for orange. You've got 5, there's low fuel. Now if you connect them all together at the same time, this is where it comes into its own. This is where you can see what the whole idea was. Imagine if these didn't cycle, you'd get all those colours blending together and the driver would not know what's going on because they'd all be on at the same time, assuming that the oil pressure was off, it was frosty, you had a phone call and you were out of petrol. Well, it sounds like you'd be having a very bad day, maybe you wouldn't even want to be in the car. So connect them all up and we'll get a sequence through, and this is how it works. So bringing this in, so now But that's how you get a display if everything was going wrong, rather than the whole cluster all on at the same time. So it's just a good way of doing it. It's how it should be done. Now when there's a delay there, it's still doing, it's 10 and I'm only using 4, so there's another 6 steps of that clock ticking away, going nowhere. There's spare pins here because it's a 10 unit counter. So what we're going to do, the remaining 6, probably leave a gap, but the remaining 5 I'm going to link across so that they double up onto the red, so that the oil doesn't have a long gap. I wouldn't want a long gap. Now let's say your fuel light was on. A fuel light, you don't want to be hitting at you every minute. Sorry, not every minute. You don't want to be constantly flashing. It wants to be you know, a gap between it. And if you look at the gap between the fuel light, it's about right, just a little reminder. But the oil, you would want it on all the time. Well, not all the time. I mean, well, yeah, you could have it on all the time, but we're building a flashing unit, so you want it more often than the other sensors. So, because it's critical. So I'm going to use the rest of the outputs on the board and just piggyback them across onto the transistor bank for the oil light. So we got the counter chip and we got the transistor array. 12 volts comes in on these wires, just the 4 wires, one for each sensor. Assuming that they're active, 12 volts comes in, then it hits a dead end because it can't get through these little switches inside this chip. It wants to try and get through and light the LED, but it can't. This chip needs to be told to switch each little tiny transistor switch, so by letting the power get through and find its way to the LED. However, it can't because it needs to be told to open those little switches, and that's what the counter chip does. In turn, it puts 12 volts or logic high to each pin in the sequence, and any associated pin, that transistor then switches, lets the power get through this chip to the LED, which then goes to ground. So that's what's happening there. This chip's controlling this switching chip. Switching chip switches in sequence, and that's it. And the clock itself, off screen, there it is, that's just supplying the pulse. This could be now transferred across in a miniature form, and sit just on this board with a 555 timer clock. But I happen to have this one already made up, and basically laziness that I didn't want to build it onto this board. I actually think there's a need. This little circuit was done and it'll fit inside the box, so there's no real loss there, and the trim pots are there so you can adjust it if you needed to. So that all fits into the multifunction box, which will go behind the dash. Now you could put another feature on this whereby if I switch on the side lights, that it takes some current off these so they're not as dazzling in nighttime driving. An example of that would be the frost alarm's going to be ticking away. Well, if it's on full brightness, alright in daytime, but would you really want that blasting at you in the dark? It's too much in your face. So what we need to do is add a dimming circuit to these, and luckily they're all switched through a common ground on the transistor array. Here my screwdriver's touching it, that's the ground for all the LEDs. If I just place a resistor in here, an extra resistor, probably use something like a 1K resistor, that will then dim the LEDs. Now you don't want them dim all the time, you want them only dim when it's dark, so you'd put a relay across the contacts which would bypass the resistor in daylight conditions, and when the relay activates, it switches the resistor here into the circuit, so by dimming the lights. So that needs adding in really. I think it's important. I think Ruby's got that, so I think we need to add it. So I'm going to cut that wire now. I'm going to experiment with low lighting in the garage. I'll turn the lights off in here and just see. I'll also get the cluster. I'll actually fit these into the lamp holder as well once we've done that extra oil cycle. and then we're virtually backwards. We're virtually done. Okay, we are up and running. I probably won't do the auto dim. I don't think it's necessary. I want it bright in all conditions, so we're going to leave that. We don't think it's too much. We could always alter it if we had to, but I think that's going to be fine for the job. We're fitting nicely into the project box. This will go on the top and hide that module. It's a lot smaller than the one I built last time on Ruby. There's your module. We just have to put an inline connector in it that's small enough to fit through the dashboard aperture, so we can slot it into the dash itself, or I could fit it in situ as it is, because these LEDs do push out of the back of that fit in there. So it's up to us how we do that one. Multifunction light then, all done and running. We can adjust the speed if we want on those trim screws. As I said, we have to just decide what rate you want it. It's currently cycling through all the colours. You can see the emphasis is on the red. You're getting those 2 flashes and then a further long flash on the red, so for your oils coming in enough. So that's going to warn you that your oil's gone. Okay, so we're done there. Just making sure, looking back, that we're bright enough here. I can push the LEDs in to the aperture a little bit more if I want, but that Fresnel lens there is giving us good diffusion. In fact, if we go underneath the bench, it's a little bit darker. You can see it a bit better. You've got plenty there. So then, that completes that sub module. We can put this lid on here and seal this up. A couple of little heat shrink joins to do there where I patched in. The diodes are in there just to take those extra 5 feeds across to use. I think I used 4 of them to go across to give that extra red cycle that you get. We talked about that. Clear the bench, switch everything down for today. It's not a bad little job. The first module then, and as I say, you can fit that into that aperture. Let's go over and have a little look, just into there, through the trim piece. We have to get the trim pieces in first before we can finally fit the light. I think it's now time to move on to the stereo. Our stereo of choice is just over here, and we're going to start doing an MP3 conversion on this one for the next video. So this video has just been about setting up the workshop, tidying up the workshop, introducing you to the workshop and getting organised, and then taking you slowly into the electronics, so that the next part could be 32 or 33, not sure, will be full on rate MP3 episode. This one's just been a combo of jobs. Let's get that bench clear now. It messes up really quick, and then I'm hacking my way through all this stuff down here and then getting it all organised. So leave me with that, and catch you next time.